You own a home, your Shangri-La, and where memories are made. But owning a home is hard. And that's where we come in. This is the Absolute Home Service Podcast. We interview local businesses to show homeowners how improvements can be made, common issues, maintenance, and everything in between. Welcome to the Absolute Home Service Podcast. And now your hosts, James McCarter.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Absolute Home Service Podcast. We welcome you back again. Today we have got a fantastic guest. It's one of Absolute Service's very own. We're welcoming in Mr. Carlton Cole. Carlton, man, how's it going today? How you doing, man?
Oh, it's going great, James. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carlton is one of our plumbing service experts here at Absolute Services, and today what he's going to be sharing with you is all of his knowledge in plumbing, right? Giving you some best practices, things to look for, things to stay away from, when to call. That way you can better take care of your home. So Carlton, what I like to do first is tell me a little bit about your background, man. Where did you come from? How did you get into this trade?
Well, I'll tell you, I never thought about becoming a plumber when I was a kid. I wanted to be a rock star, but it hasn't panned out quite yet. So ended up moving from New York to Kentucky, and I was offered a gig working for Ray Hedrick, who is the director of the division of plumbing here at Absolute, and he had his own company, and I was just coming off of doing all kinds of like odd jobs, nothing serious, and I thought this was going to just be another one of them temporary gigs. But I like doing plumbing, so I stuck with it, and now I've been plumbing for over 4 years, and I really enjoy helping people. So.
That's awesome. And that shows with everything that you do every single day. I mean, I hear it every time that I walk into the office, or I see it in our message, a group message when we're talking about, different reviews and stuff coming in. So it shows in your work and what you do every day. So being able to share a little bit, like, with our listeners, what are some of the common plumbing problems that homeowners should be aware of?
Well, I would say a lot of times people don't know that they've got too high of pressure. So what happens is, like a dishwasher or a laundry machine, they're rated for 55 to 65 PSI. And there's been homes that I've gone in and they got 140 PSI. They're not rated for those things. And what it does is it causes stress on that equipment. And those are just two of the many pieces of equipment that use water in the house. On top of that, I would say, chlorine in the water is detrimental to a plumbing system. You don't have to look too far to find, if you take the tank lid off your toilet, and that's clean water, so you don't have to worry about, getting germs on you. But
appreciate that little tidbit.
Reach down in the toilet tank, if you got a black rubber seal, on the toilet tank bolts, you rub that and you'll turn the water black. I mean, that's the rubber literally disintegrating because of the chlorine. It's acidic. The water company puts it in there so bacteria doesn't grow in the water. But when it gets to your house, you really got to get that out. So those are two big things. Hard water, obviously, a big issue. It causes problems with faucets, dishwashers, Hard water is something that we really struggle with here in Kentucky.
So you've come firing out of the gates, man. I can go in a bunch of different directions with this, but I want to talk about the first one. So you mentioned like PSI and being at like 50 to 60 on dishwashers and things like that, and then being at 140 or so in the house. How do you know if your PSI levels are too high?
Well, what you do is you can go to pretty much any hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot.
Right.
You get a pressure test gauge that screws onto your outside faucet. and you screw it on there and you turn it on, and it'll tell you exactly what the PSI is coming in the house.
Oh, it's very interesting. Is that something homeowners should have tested at least once or twice? Tested regularly. How does that work?
Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, if you've got a good home inspector that you're buying in your house, he will put that on the home inspection. And but some miss it. But it's very important to know what kind of pressure you're dealing with, not only for the dishwasher, laundry machine, all that stuff, but when it comes to expansion tanks on the water heater. What those are, it's Kentucky State Code. I don't know what the code is in Indiana, but what an expansion tank does is it relieves the pressure that builds as you heat water in the water heater. So you have to pump that up with compressed air 2 pounds less than what is coming in the house. That way it actually functions.
Right.
If you don't know what that pressure is, then you're pretty much, you're just putting a nice little ornament on the water heater.
Right. Gotcha. So the next direction that I'd like to take that in is, the other thing that you had said in your opening statement was, acidic water, like being able to rub that little, that rubber gasket that's in the water tank.
Yeah.
How do you, that does not sound good, having acidic water.
Sure.
What do we do about that? And what kind of potential, health complications are we looking at?
Well, you're right that chlorine is acidic. I mean, when you were a kid and you'd go to the public pool and you'd come home, your mom would say, hop in the shower and get that chlorine off. But what you're doing is you're rinsing the chlorine water off with chlorine water, essentially. So
Okay.
a website that I use every single day on the job is ewg.org/tapwater. Now it's an amazing resource for plumbers, but even just homeowners to know exactly what's in the water. So currently they're in 2021 still. They're going to be updating that pretty quick. But essentially what you can do is type in your zip code, pull up the water company that you use, and it's going to tell you everything that's in the water. For example, here in Radcliffe, there's arsenic in the water. And don't get me started on how that's possible, how that's allowed, but there is a legal limit to the amount of arsenic in the water. And it blows my mind, but fortunately, the solution for that is going to be a water softener and a catalytic carbon filter.
You beat me to it, because that was going to be my next question. But before we go to that website, can you repeat that one more time? We're gonna put that down in the description. Put the link there. That was ewg.org/tapwater.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Gotcha. That's a great resource. Everybody should go and check that out and kind of see what's going on in your area. So back to this water softener. Is that what you said?
Well, let me just go back to EWG real quick.
Got
The
it.
cool thing about EWG is it tells you what the potential effects are in the
Mm-hmm.
water, and you can click on details, and it tells you everything, what the state regulations are. I mean, it's just very comprehensive. So I just wanted to let you guys know, as homeowners, you should really know what's in your water, especially if you got kids. And EWG is a great resource.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll get on this water softener here real quick, but now this just has my mind racing, right? Because you talked about, which was a very great statement. I've never heard that, washing chlorine off with chlorine.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling. That doesn't make sense. But you wash your pets off with that water. You shower in that water. You wash your cars with that water, right? How do you fix that? And you mentioned water softeners.
Sure.
What's the fix? What's a water softener do?
Well, I mean, a lot of people, they don't drink the water out of the tap, and they're typically drinking bottled water, which is cool. However, when you're showering
Mm-hmm.
and you're showering in warm water, you're essentially opening your pores and absorbing whatever chemicals are in the water through your
Right.
skin. Not to mention, nobody empties bottles of water into a pot to boil water with. I mean, it's just not, it's not common. I don't know anybody who does that. So when you say,
If I told you that I did that, would you be like completely surprised and like taken back?
I would say you need to buck up and get a water softener or a reverse
I
osmosis.
don't do that.
Well, but essentially, what you're feeding, what you're cooking with,
Hmm.
your ice maker, does that have a filter on it? A lot of them do, but they don't take out those chemicals. It's typically just a softener filter, which
Right.
that's something that a homeowner should really look to see how often they got to change that. But as far as water softeners, so we do a test every time we enter the house, and that test tells us how hard the water is. And so essentially, 4 grains hard is excessive hardness, and I've never been to a house that has less than 4 grains if they don't have a water softener. 8 is extremely hard, and at my house I have 11 grains hard. What happened with me was that my dishwasher, after 2 weeks, brand new dishwasher, after 2 weeks, started getting that white calcium film on my dishes, and it was an $800 dishwasher. Fortunately, I'm a plumber, so I installed it myself, saved a little money. However, I just realized what kind of tiny orifices that water passes through to get the pressure to clean my dishes, and I'm not
Right.
going to replace that anytime soon. So what I did was I got a water softener. On top of the fact that I realized I was absorbing those chemicals, including arsenic, through my skin. So to be completely honest with you, James, I was taking cold showers for about a month until I got that water softener, and it's not as much fun as it sounds, to be frank
I
with you.
don't. I don't think so. I don't think I would ever intentionally do that for sure.
Well, they say it's good for the brain, which I could use all the help I can get. Fortunately, now I got the water softener, so I'm back to square one.
Right. Now, one thing that I've heard about these water softeners is like, and maybe you can like dispel this myth, but one thing that I've always heard about it is one of the side effects of putting them in is like your skin is like slimy. What is that?
So when you've got hard water and you've got chlorine and you've got other um, when you got other chemicals, that soap, it's going to be attacking that stuff as well as trying to clean you. So when you're done with the shower, most people say that they when they dry off, their skin is that it feels more coarse. I've had a water softener now for 6 months, and it only took about a week or two before I got used to the feeling of clean, soft water. So, that soap is doing what it needs to do. And I mean, a lot of soaps have, especially feminine products, they have a, a lotion part in the soap, and that is actually doing what it should do. It's not having to attack all the other things that are in your water.
Right. So that feeling that people are getting is they're just experiencing clean
Clean
water.
water. Exactly. Yeah.
So I always thought that when you went to hotels or something like that, because apparently they have water softeners on them, right? I always thought that when you went to a hotel and you felt like that, that something was wrong, but they're actually doing something really good and beneficial for us if we're feeling that type of stuff in there, huh? That's
Yep.
that's awesome. So you mentioned putting in that water in that dishwasher, which kind of takes me into my next question. DIYers, they're
Yeah.
they're out there. It happens, right?
Yeah.
You and I are both one of them, right? So, what are some tasks that homeowners can do in their home when it relates to plumbing?
Well, I would say that when it comes to commodes, you've got to be a licensed plumber to pull one and replace one. If you're a DIYer and you're going to do it, nobody's going to call 911 on you. I mean, but I would say that if you don't hook it up properly, let's say you got a bathroom upstairs. If you don't hook it up properly, you could damage a lot of things on its way down, because water follows the law of gravity, so it's gonna roll, and you'll never know where it's going to end up till it's done a lot of damage. So, but one thing I would say is a lot of the newer toilets have fluid master fill valves. And those things, I mean, if you're going to buy a new toilet, make sure it's got a fluid master. I mean, that makes my job super easy. And if I come to your house and I show you one time how to do it, you'll never call a plumber to change one again. A lot of people, they'll call a plumber because their toilet keeps filling up. And, I reach down in there and I wipe away a bunch of calcium debris. So, a lot of your plumbing issues will be solved by the softener. But to replace a fill valve, it's as simple as sliding down a a plastic collar. Shut the water off to the toilet first.
Right.
And then you pull the old valve out and you slide the new one back down in there. Make sure that collar is seated back all the way. And I mean, it's good as new.
Right. Sounds super simple. So with different things like that, with you've mentioned a lot of different, and when you start thinking about it, this is when it like starts just really racing through your mind on exactly how much water like appliances there are in your home. I mean, sinks, faucets, tubs, toilets, dishwashers, ice makers. Like you don't really think about all this stuff. How often? Because we all know it's super important to have it maintenance. Without maintenance, lifetimes drop dramatically. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Because you're not gonna not maintenance your body, would you? No, you're gonna get checkups. Like you're gonna get checkups on your teeth and your heart and your blood, right? Making sure that everything's working great. In the plumbing world, how often should the plumbing be inspected?
Well, like a home inspector will give an inspection, and there's a lot of times I've been to homes where they've just moved in and they're having a problem with something, and they ask me, why didn't the home inspector catch that? I mean, they're not typically licensed in any particular field, and so I say, I mean, they do a broad inspection on everything. They're not
Right.
going to catch everything. I promise you that.
Right.
So I see this kind of stuff every single day. So I can come in and I can tell you all the bad and hopefully some of the good. For example, washing machine hoses. A lot of people don't know that when they get a washing machine installed, whoever installs it, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but whether it's a big box store, they'll bring cheap rubber hoses. And now, if you remember what chlorine does to the rubber seals in the toilet, those rubber hoses busting, I mean, that's a 3/4 line. Those hoses busting will cause massive amounts of damage, especially if it's in an upstairs room. So for me, definitely recommend everybody gets an inspection from a licensed plumber. And I wouldn't say just anybody. I would say what Absolute does is far above most other companies I've worked for.
Right.
Because we don't just come in and just get blinders on and see one issue that you called about. When we come into a house, we inspect everything. And there's a lot of things that I see every single day and that I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to give you an estimate on fixing it. I'm going to give you the best possible solution that you can have to not only fix the problem that you currently have, but to prevent problems. And that estimate, is I like to think about it as an investment, like your water softener. When you add a water softener to your system, you're not going to have to replace your dishwasher prematurely, your water heater prematurely. So the longevity of this equipment is extended because you invested in something today, preventing problems down the road. So I would say if you called Absolute or a company that takes serious, these kinds of things, which I don't know anybody. I mean, maybe I'm biased, but the truth is if you get an inspection and you decide, keep that inspection, keep that estimate, because if you go with the top estimate, the risk of problems down the road decrease exponentially.
That's amazing. So is it the water softener? that in itself, I mean, you've mentioned it several times now, as far as like the benefits of it, longer life on equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Water in our area must just be really that bad if it's doing that much damage to everything.
Well, I'll tell you this. I said well water is going to be
No
like
pun intended, right?
yeah.
Missed your opportunity, man.
So well water is super hard water. So if you're on a well, you better be ready to change a water heater in 6 to 10 years. I mean, and that's a professional grade water heater, not a consumer grade water heater.
Right.
Or you can get a softener. And so I do talk about softeners a lot, and it's just because I believe in them. I've seen for myself firsthand what it does. It's not like I'm just grasping for straws trying to make something up to
For
sell things.
sure.
The truth is I have a water softener and a reverse osmosis system. So yeah, at the end of the day, if I come to your house, I'm just going to tell you the truth. And the truth is, if you've got hard water, it's going to cause issues.
Uh, I couldn't agree with you more, but you just mentioned something that I think that you should probably go down that path just a little bit more. What is reverse osmosis?
So reverse osmosis is a membrane, and it is a very the water that passes through it. It's such a slow process. It's not really feasible for a whole home, but it is the best way to filter water. I mean, it takes out what your water softener and your catalytic carbon, which they both take out a lot. And that's the system that we install. We don't just do a water softener. We give you both. The only thing that I've noticed that about the water softener versus reverse osmosis is, it just seems to taste like you can taste the cleanliness. It does take out. If you looked at EWG, it'll tell you exactly what reverse osmosis takes out versus the other two. Reverse osmosis takes out fluoride, which I'm not going to get into politics, but fluoride is the number one used ingredient in rat poison. And so I like to get that out of my water. I don't
Mm-hmm.
waste my fluoride.
You and me both.
So, and it takes out aluminum, which
Right.
is good. So, reverse osmosis, it's the best way to filter water. But as far as your whole home filter, um, it only lacks the fluoride and aluminum that takes it out. But I cook with it. I give it to my cat and dog. I love having it. It's like the most filtered water on the block probably, and it doesn't make you better than everybody, but you feel better than everybody. That's what I
Hey,
say.
you might be the only one that's there. It's actually tasting clean water, right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
So we've talked a lot about how to prevent clean water, where to go and look for these types of things, and know what's in your water. I want to shift gears here just a little bit to another one of the common issues that you had mentioned in the very beginning. Burst pipes. I mean, I know that happens. It happens a lot. It happens a lot more than I thought, but definitely in the wintertime.
Sure.
What should homeowners do? Because that's not something that's like, you can look at your tire on your car and see that it's going bald, and you know that something's getting ready to happen. Burst
Yeah.
pipes, like that's just like out of nowhere, right? So, what should a homeowner do if they have a burst pipe?
Well, I mean, definitely you need to know exactly where your main water shutoff is. That's like I said, it should be in the home inspection. If you don't know where that is and you can't find it, call a professional and we'll find it for you. Because the worst thing is not knowing where it is and having to go to the water meter and get on your belly and take a pair of channel locks and try to shut it off. I've been to houses that flooded because they could not shut the main water, or they could not shut the meter off. They didn't know where their main water shut off is. Plus, another thing is gate valves. I mean, they're a thing of the past. They're obsolete. So if you've got a main water valve, where you have to
Oh,
shut
we
it
got some
off.
sound effects.
Yeah, that's right. Um, then those things are I mean, we don't use them anymore. They
What kind
are
of valves do you use?
we use ball valves, and
Okay.
we use ball valves on everything now. I mean,
That's just like the ones that have like the just a quarter turn on them or something like that, right?
yeah,
Gotcha.
and so if you've got a gate valve, chances are, it was installed 30, 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, talking about hardness, talking about the rubber seals going bad when it comes to the chlorine in the water. I mean, those things, I a couple weeks ago, actually, I was trying to shut one off and it broke. Fortunately, I have a meter key, so I went and shut the water off, cleaned it up, no damage done. But they leak more often than not. So you tighten the pack nut, making it harder to shut off the next time. I mean, that is the first thing that I look for when I walk in a house is your main water shut off. So you need to know where it is. If you
Right.
don't, if you don't have one, some people don't have one. We can come in and we can run a line in a closet or somewhere where the main is in the house. You can shut it off, and we use PEX because PEX will expand to 10 times its size before it busts. Another thing homeowners don't realize, and it's it's kind of funny because when you've got an outside faucet, it says do not leave the hose connected during cold weather months
Right.
because it will cause it to freeze and bust. A outside faucet, the ones that are Kentucky State Code now, they have a vacuum breaker on it. So when you turn it on, it shoots a rubber seal up and it lets the water come out just the one direction. And once you shut it off, that rubber seal drops, giving it a vent to drain all that water out. That way, it doesn't hold water, freeze, and bust. Because that copper, that's gonna, I mean, that's very susceptible to cold water. And the I guess it's cool, interesting thing about water in a copper pipe is that, and I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what happens. But if the temperature drops to like 32 degrees, that water will stay, a liquid, and then it'll drop to 30 degrees. It'll stay a liquid, and at a certain point, all that water freezes at the exact same time, and that's what causes it to bust.
Gotcha.
So
Flash freeze, huh?
yeah. So, definitely keep your hoses unhooked during the cold weather months. They make these insulators that can go over
Oh
the
yeah,
hose.
like the cap.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Gotcha.
but definitely, definitely know where your main water shutoff is.
Are there homes that don't have a main water shut off?
Uh, yes, or at least are not accessible. In a crawl space. I mean, if you got a pipe that busts up above, you know, are you gonna crawl? Are you gonna know where it is, and are you gonna crawl in the crawl space?
No.
I've
The answer is no, Carlton. Stuff lives down there, and it's not me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't. I
Well,
don't want to be down there.
I get the pleasure of crawling in crawl spaces, but uh, I would say 99% of homes have main water shutoffs inside the house. And if you don't, you need to have one put in so that if an emergency happens, every time you have a water emergency, you know, a pipe busting or something of that nature, you need to know where that main water shutoff
Yeah,
is.
you wanna be able, because I imagine, right? Like I just see it like in the movies, like what was that movie with the little kid with Kevin McAllister, Home Alone, when they flooded the basement, right? It's
Yeah.
water everywhere, just busting, blowing at like 5,000 miles an hour. That's just kind of what I see, right? So
If that was
the
me, there
longer
wouldn't.
that goes, the more damage it's going to do.
My
I
dad
think
would
I
have.
cut you off. What was you saying on that part?
I said if that was me, there wouldn't have been a Home Alone 2. My dad would have killed me.
Yeah, no, Home Alone too. So, all this is going to start happening, right? You're going to get leaks. You're going to get, hey, I just saw something too. I'm going to squirrel here for a second. This is kind of funny, and I'm going to see if yours has it. This bottle of water that I'm drinking says processed by reverse osmosis on it.
Sure.
So is that why this water is better than what's going to come out of my faucet?
Yeah, I mean, you're when these bottled waters. I mean, that's probably all bottled in the same spot, but reverse osmosis is going to be the best. And so
Right.
the cool thing about reverse osmosis systems, at least the ones we install, is that you can actually add a mineral filter at the end, putting the minerals back in for, I mean, minerals are good for you.
The good
So
minerals, putting the good minerals back in, right?
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. So getting back on track here. I told you before we hopped on here, man. I'm gonna squirrel. I'm gonna take this thing all over the place. It's like a dog chasing a car. You don't know where I'm gonna go. So with bursting pipes and different things like that, and minimizing risks, like if you have leaks, earlier you had mentioned like water follows the rules of gravity, right? It's just going to flow, and you don't know where it's going to stop until. How can homeowners know if they have a leak? What are some signs or anything like that they can look for?
Well, if they're not seeing water pool up, sometimes a good portion of the calls that we get from leaks is the homeowner never caught it, but the water company did. So the water company might reach
Oh,
out and
that's
say,
interesting.
yeah. So they'll say, hey, you've used twice as much water. Um, so that's going to be a telltale sign. You know, as far as leaks, if you're like it's a summer day, and you start to see, that the grass is a lot more green in one area, or it's like
Mm-hmm.
soft earth, and then you got a leak in the yard. What I do
That could
is,
just be where I go to the bathroom, Carlton. You don't know
man,
that.
I
I mean, we are from Kentucky.
pictured it, and I really regret that.
So I took you off your game there for a second, huh? This
Well,
is this
yeah.
is this is all about fun. You know what's crazy is I know a lot of people that are listening to this probably go, oh yeah, I mean I do have a green spot in my yard too.
Well, they probably don't know that we've paused this 12 times for me to use the bathroom because I just pee all the time. That's the legit reverse osmosis right there. I mean, but I'm sorry. I regret that. We'll edit that out.
Yeah, I'm
But
I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna take it out. All right.
okay, well, so back to the matter at hand. If you shut off your main water valve in the
Hmm.
house, you can go to the meter, and if that meter is still spinning, you got a leak in the yard. Um,
Oh, very
yeah,
interesting.
that's definitely one way to. And if you notice your toilet fills up and runs a lot when nobody's used it, you may have a bad seal, or like that calcium has built up between the float and the fill valve,
Yeah.
and it's not able to, and so that's a common issue. Yeah, and I would say copper piping under a house, it was the thing to use back in the day, but now, if you've got old copper piping, you probably want to think about, getting that replaced with PEX, because it's going to last a lot longer. A lot of times I'll go into a home and they've got a 15-year-old water heater, and I tell them, hey, so, we can change this today, or you can wait till it goes out, call us, and it might be a day or two before we can get out to you. You take a couple cold showers. It's not a matter of if this water heater is going to go out. It's a matter of when, and it's always at the
Sure.
worst.
Right.
So as far as preventing leaks, if you've got copper pipes, my suggestion would be consider replacing it with PEX.
Right. So like, it's funny that you mentioned that. I didn't have copper. I had one older than that. So this had the house that we were in before this one. We remodeled it. Right. It was
Yeah.
built in like 1950, 1960 or somewhere around in there. It had like that old clay, like that terracotta pipe in it.
Oh, for the drain lines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Not the incoming water, the drain. Oh my gosh, that stuff was. I mean, the roots grew through it so like
Yeah.
easy. It just breaks it so brittle and pushes it out of the way. Right.
So
Um.
so it's organic. and that's why roots can
Mm-hmm.
penetrate it. And once the roots start, I mean, there's no going back from that. They've found their water source. They're gonna you know continue that same spot. And so I mean, at that point, you have really two options. Well, you have three. You can keep calling a plumber out once a year to rip those roots out. Or you can have it dug up, which is expensive, but also destroys your yard. Um, that's one way to do it. But the new thing that Absolute does, which I mean, I've never been at a company that's done this. It saves your yard by lining the existing, well, whether it's terracotta or cast iron, it lines it with plastic, creating a smooth surface, and I mean sealing up all those cracks, preventing, like I said, preventing you from having to dig up your yard. It's a super cool process that we're gonna. I mean, we've been doing a lot more of that, and so if you've got roots, they're gonna keep coming. So
Is that obviously I'm not in the plumbing department, but I hear you guys talk about it quite a bit. Is that the trench list that they talk about?
yeah, I don't know what the technical name is. We've got
Hmm.
two divisions. One is drain cleaners, and I'm the team lead for the service experts. Um, and I don't know what they call it, but I guess they call it pipelining. Is what they
Right,
call it.
gotcha. Well, I mean, and I've seen a lot of videos and stuff on it, just
Yeah,
because hearing it, you know how our phones are. They're always listening to us and tailor the ads to what we're listening to. So I've seen those videos of them like pushing it down through the pipe, and it just comes like popping out, and then they like saw it off. It looks like a very very cool process, but when I was talking to Ray about it, and he had just mentioned about something that me not being in that particular trade, not really thinking about it, I was like, man, that sounds great. Like he was talking about, like, if you have it bust underneath like a house, or like a slab, or underneath a concrete patio outside, or under things that you don't want to dig up, driveways or whatever the case may be. Now you don't have to bust all that stuff up. You can go down through there and then just reline the pipe. And I'm like, no way. And he starts showing me pictures. I'm like, okay, yes way. That's a very interesting process. But
and
just
innovative.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's innovative. I mean, it's not been out for very long, and as far as I know, Absolute is one of the only companies that offer pipelining.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that probably keeps that department busy. That's for sure. I mean, it's one of those things that I've got people that I know that's up in like New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, that is huge up there because their city is
Yeah,
built on concrete. It's built on concrete, right? So I know of people that do that. I just never really looked into it too much. But Carlton, earlier you mentioned, like, it's not when you have to replace your water heater, or it's not if, it's when, right? And
yeah.
looking at PECs and different things like that. So how what are some things that homeowners can do to prolong the life of the water heater? I know one. Give me a gold star. Ready?
Okay, yeah. Tell me, you
Call
want me to
you
do
and let you come out there
it?
and
Yeah,
inspect it.
prolong it for sure. I mean, um, so the manufacturer typically warranties the tank only from leaking for 6 years,
Okay.
and so um, at 5 years, they recommend that you change the TNP, which is a relief line, as just like the expansion tank, as a water heater heats up, it expands, the water expands. Um, so that's one they recommend that you change every 5 years. Also, if you've got high pressure, you need to get a pressure reducing valve installed because that water heater is, I mean, it builds pressure. So if you say you have 100 psi, and I'm just throwing numbers out, but you're heating that water, you're increasing the psi. I
Hmm.
don't know how much, but just that. I was at a house couple weeks ago, and that TNP was dripping and dripping and dripping. And so I said we can replace the expansion tank because it's bad. Which, if you're a homeowner and you want to know whether or not your expansion tank is bad, all you got to do is take off the cap for where you fill it up with compressed air, and you just compress that nozzle. It's like a tire pressure inflator. I guess is probably not the technical term, but if it squirts water out, it's bad. Or if it's not, it doesn't have any air come out, it's bad. So that's important. When we checked the lady's water pressure to pump up the expansion tank to the right PSI, it was 140 PSI. If I change that expansion tank, the expansion tank's only rated for 120 PSI,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't want to pump it up to that. I would feel like it was a rocket in my hand. So we had to install a pressure reducing valve, and that solved the issue and saved her. I mean, I've never seen a water heater explode for myself, but I would say 140 psi. If anything is going to explode at 140 psi, you know, I don't want to be there for that. So we probably saved this lady. I mean, no telling how much.
Right, some heartache for sure.
Yep.
So this is going to kind of go back to a little, one our previous conversation, but this has kind of got me curious. So the where is the water softener placed in the home as far as water in the house to water out the house? Where in line does that start at?
Right. Well, to kind of go back just one step because I'm catching your squirrelisms. Changing every 5 years, changing the pressure relief valve is one step, but also changing your anode rod. The anode rod, what it does is it takes on the corrosion
Mm-hmm.
so that the tank itself doesn't. So you change that every 5 years as well as the TNP. So those are definitely very important steps. As far as where the water softener goes, a lot of times your main water shutoff is going to be in that same room
Mm-hmm.
as the water heater. So what you want to do is before that water goes anywhere, whether it be an outside faucet or into the water heater, before any of that, you want to tie on right there. You want to.
Oh, so it's your first point of contact.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you've got the water heater, tied on first, I mean, that's where that scale is going to build up. Hot water is what creates that scale more than anything else.
Right.
You want that water going into the water heater to be soft.
Right.
Extending the life of that, extending the life of everything that uses hot water. So that's
Right.
going to be the first thing, and what we got to do is, we just have to have an outlet in that room. It's not a high voltage system. It's just, just kind of like a phone charger. That's all it needs. The system that we install is Novo. It's from the Canister Group. It's the number one installed water softener system in North America. And it's an upflow. It's just a super efficient. It saves 2,000 gallons of water every single year. It only has to flush every week or week and a half. Not to mention it uses a lot less salt than your standard, Lowe's or Home Depot water softener.
Right.
And if we install it, we're going to bring a year's worth of salt for you. So it's going to go in that. Typically, it's going to go in that water heater closet with a floor drain because it's going to have to have a drain. But I mean, we'd have to see what you got going on at the house.
Gotcha. Give us a call, right?
Yeah, give us a call.
So talking about, water heaters, the new thing now is these tankless water heaters, right? What's the advantages or disadvantages over from a tankless water heater versus a traditional like storage tank water heater?
Well, the biggest thing is going to be the energy savings. When you've got a standard tank water heater, let's say 50 gallon, what you're doing is it's going to increase the temperature of that water till it gets to a certain temperature. 120 degrees is considered hot water. So, and no matter whether you're using that water or not, it's going to keep that temperature using
Mm-hmm.
electricity. So while you're sleeping, your water's staying hot. So um, versus a tankless water heater, it heats the water as it goes through. I mean, so the advantage is just, I mean, energy savings for one. Typically, we like to see a gas water heater to replace it with a gas tankless,
Mm-hmm.
um, because the electric tankless they make them, and I mean, I haven't heard much negativity about them, but you have to have 40 amp breakers going to that water heater. You have to have you know, three 40 amp breakers dedicated for that. And so that almost always means that you're going to have to pay an electrician to do that. So, you know, that's a big energy draw as well. But I guess the disadvantage is that, if you got a tankless, you have to condition the water, aka water softener. If you don't condition the water, it very well could void the warranty, especially if you've got high hardness.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's an additional cost there. But I mean, I've never gone and uninstalled one. I mean, I've only installed them. Nobody's ever been like, get this thing out of my house. They
Right.
people just love them. So
How big are they?
so I mean, I guess probably 24 inches wide, and probably I think like 18 inches deep. I would say probably, you know, 32 inches tall.
Oh,
So
they're much smaller than like a regular water heater.
yeah, and that's a benefit right there. I mean,
Huh.
if you got a small house and you've got a closet being taken up by a water heater, I mean, you're going to be getting a lot of room back. So, but on the other side of that is you do need it's 90% of the ones that we install are condensating, meaning that you're going to have to take that condensation line out. So if that means if you're in the middle of the house, we're going to have to run a line. And but I mean, it's no big deal. I mean, it's worth it at the end of the day. I mean, the energy savings alone. I mean,
Right. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I've heard nothing but great things about them. I will get one. I will. I just I haven't done it yet. We're still in the process of looking for a new home. So I don't want to put it in here yet.
I got you.
Um, so
I
you'll be
I know.
coming out and doing my inspection.
Yeah, I know somebody who does tankless water heaters.
You know a guy?
I know a guy.
Oh,
I can give you his
so one of the things that we deal with a lot. I've heard this, and I didn't know that this was such a big, huge deal until talking to you. But you know, major storms and effect on plumbing.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
How do you like? How does a storm affect plumbing? One, two. How do you prepare for that? What can you do?
Well, it's funny because the last time that we had a big storm, it knocked my power out for 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I was just blessed to have bought a generator, in preparation for something like that. But I remember um, my wife had just gotten out of the bathroom and she's like, "Hey, you know, am I allowed? Can I flush that toilet because the electricity's out?" And I just had to laugh, and I was just like, "That's super funny." And I mean, some homeowners may think that exact same thing. If you've got
Check the breaker first. Make sure it's good to go.
yeah, yeah, that toilet's going to be on its own dedicated circuit. So just go ahead and check that. No, you can flush the toilet when the power goes out, which is super nice.
Yeah.
But then when we go back to pros and cons of tankless, when
Wait,
your power goes
wait,
out,
wait. That's why there's a green spot in my yard. I didn't know that you can flush the toilet when the power's out.
yeah, well,
Oh, silly me. That's a good
it,
excuse. I'll just tell
yeah,
everybody I lost power.
yeah, the trajectory of your life has just increased. Drastically. So back to the real world. So when you've got a tankless water heater and the power goes out, I mean, you're
Mhm.
going to be without water. Hot
Right.
water, that is. I'm sorry. But when you got a tanked water heater, the water that's in that tank is going to be warm, and it's going to be warm for quite a while, especially if it's a relatively new tank, because I mean back in the day, 15 years ago even, we didn't have as many of these green initiatives. Now there's so much insulation in those water heaters. That water's going to stay warm for, I mean, my water stayed warm for 2.5, 3 days. I mean, when the power went out, I took a shower that night, nice and warm. Next day, took a shower that night, nice and warm. The next day, my wife got to take a warm shower, and I drew the short straw.
Day
But
after that, surprise.
that power was still out, and
Yeah.
I told her, I said, uh, I could get the water heater wired into this, and she's like, "You could?" I said, "Yeah, well, I'm not gonna, but I could."
It's a little late for that now. See, we did the same thing. So before we got our generator, right, we experienced power outages and stuff like that. So before we got ours, it's the same issue, especially with that system that just happened, right, or that storm that just came through like what, a month or so ago,
Oh
that
yeah,
just absolutely obliterated everything. I mean, power was out. Most places between 2 to, I know, people that didn't have power for like 8 or 9 days.
wow.
So yeah, they were taking a shower for like half the week. So yeah, that's some good stuff. So
Yeah. So
uh,
on top of that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no,
I
you're perfectly good.
so for me, having a generator was a really cool thing. It's a gas powered generator. I don't have uh, natural gas to the house. Generators are super super cool if you have gas. But on top of that, I installed a Liberty sump jet, and you know, our distributor would say a battery powered backup would be the better way to go. Um, that's not my preference, because just like you still got water when the power goes out, your battery, if you got 4 or 5 days out of electric, that battery could die. And then
Yeah.
what? You know what I mean? Then you're back to square one. So for me, for my money, you're talking to a guy that his basement flooded 3 times the first year he bought his house, and I'm a plumber, dude. That's embarrassing. So what I did was I got the Liberty sump jet, because it ties on to the water main, and it never goes out. You're going to continue to have water. So that would be definitely something. And don't wait until your basement floods. I mean, my basement is currently, doesn't have any flooring down there, but there's a lot of basements that are finished. Imagine having to cut 2 foot of drywall, or maybe not quite 2 foot, but all the way around the
Any
drywall.
amount is not any that anybody would want to do. I
And
mean,
it's
just replacing the drywall one time, I imagine would get you this sump jet.
Yeah, so essentially don't wait until, you regret not pulling the plug sooner, because, a little heartache in the wallet now is a lot better than the heartache you're going to feel in the wallet, if you don't.
Or in the back of your head when your basement's flooded after the third time, and your wife's like, "Dude, what can you do?" And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we can do this." She's like, "Why didn't you say this before?"
It's,
I don't want to rub the salt in the wound, man. Don't want to rub it in. But man, look, we're gonna have to get you back on here. There's still a lot that we have gotta get to. So we're gonna schedule a part two. All right, as soon as we're done, we're gonna schedule a part two, get you back on, because I know there's all kinds of stuff that we've not gotten to. I mean, sewer lines, main lines, just backups, just there's all kinds of stuff, drain cleaning, a lot that I want to get to, but we're getting close on time today, so we'll go ahead and appreciate you coming on. And as always, at the Absolute Services, Carlton plumbing service expert here. Give us a call, 502-390-2929, or look us up on the website, www.absoluteservices.net. Carlton, man, we appreciate you coming on, and we're gonna get that second one booked now.
awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me, James. The last thing I wanted to say was, yeah, we're professionals. We see this stuff every single day. I'm not going to stretch the truth. I'm going to tell you how it is. So if you want your problem fixed, you can call any plumber. But if you want a solution to problems you don't even know you had, that's where you call us. We're going to take care of you because we're absolute.
Couldn't have said it any better, man. Mic drop.
I'm sure you could have.